That may be the worst matchup ever, possibly, but maybe it's not what I'm thinking. Anyway, let's read about the matchup we've got in front of us. Should be a lot of fun here with, and perhaps we just the folks backstage like, you know what, these guys are old. We need trainers that they will recognize. They have given us Alberto and Collin, two trainers who have been excellent for a very long time. Should be super fun here. I see on one side of the field here with Alberto. Honestly, if you watched him play at any point in the Scarlet and Violet era, not that much has changed. He just has, I guess some new guys alongside the usual tricks.
Floette wasn't there originally. Gengar wasn't there originally, but the rest of these, the other four, have been around for a while for Alberto. Basque Legion, in and out, but the core is there. Corviknight, Scarf Garchomp, and Tyranitar, the Alberto Lara special there.
Yeah, nothing else said. I love it when trainers pick Pokemon that kind of they're familiar with, that they can play optimally. There is no question that he's going to be very comfortable with the Pokemon his time.
Yeah, but also Collin with the Sneasler, Frostlass, Garchomp, Palafin, Kingambit, and Dragonite. Should be a really exciting matchup there. We're going to talk plenty more about Collin's team coming up. But here's Alberto's team. Again, that core of Tyranitar, Corviknight, and the Choice Scarf Garchomp, which he has always believed in, alongside the Megas, Floette, and the Tyranitar. This is a rare Focus Sash Gengar here. Yeah,
you normally see the Mega Evolved Gengar, but going a little bit different direction with two different Mega Evolving Pokemon available on this team, with the Tyranitar, who I assume is a little bit more of a lecturing, you can bring it with or without the Mega, and then the Floette, who is definitely going to be using that Mega Stone to the fullest if it's entering the battle. A lot of fun here too, where we often kind of hone in like, oh, these teams are similar looking, but they're different. We really mean it in this case, where it does not look all that similar to the Sand team we saw in the previous round from Brendan, where we're seeing the Tyranitar, really just the Tyranitar, I guess, where Excadrill has been replaced by this Garchomp, which I think is unconventional on the Sand teams, but we do see a lot of in this format in general. A Choice Scarf Garchomp's actually quite a big thing. We've not seen so much of it on screen as I think is just out in the field. And then Corviknight, once again, is I guess the one piece that's like really the same. Then we get the Floette, kind of what we're used to seeing, the very unusual Gengar, where I think trainers are no longer used to this. We have seen it in the past. I think actually the first time Mega Evolution rolled around, where I think it's like Marcus Statter and that sort of crew is running a sort of Pokemon where it never made any sense to me. It seems like a Pokemon that only Germans could use well, but we'll have to see if Alberto has perhaps traveled and learned the ways.
Yes, sprechen Sie Deutsch for the Gengar here on Alberto's side. And this is one of the fastest Icy Wind users in the format, so it makes a lot of sense if you can dodge Kingambit, which is going to be very important for Alberto. Can't just spam those Icy Winds because Kingambit is on Collin's team over here. Going for 3 attacks, the double Dark types and the Iron Head for the better matchup into Fairies, but it's all about the Palafin on this team. Palafin, the hero of regulations A and B, regulated back to a 0 for the rest of Scarlet and Violet, is showing up undefeated here in our first Champions Regional.
There, I guess fittingly, it's like, hey, I heard we're doing a new whole generation thing, so it's my time for just a while. I think it's really underplayed. I think it's been very powerful. I have not played the bulk up version of this, but I have played it a little bit alongside College Hood. I was like pretty shocked with Rain how much damage it did, where it was very frequently scoring knockouts for me. I was not expecting it to get, and bulk up is effectively the same boost as Rain, right? But this Pokemon is going to be capable of getting multiple boosts with its own bulk up or help from this coaching Sneasler, which we don't see too frequently, but I think is super fun. We're also very excited by its nickname, which for any fans of Survivor, there's a coach in that as well, and we're
and there is a dragon to slay on the other side, and Palafin here to support.
Yeah, with the double battles in VGC, hopefully he can survive the double duos twist this time around. Should be a lot of fun. This Aurora Veil, I think, also going to be very impactful. A bunch of Pokemon on Collin's side of the field are difficult to knock out. And another team that I suspect is doing very well in those Charizard matchups.
All right, and here we go. It is Palafin and Sneasler. The Tidewalker combo is led from Collin up against the Tyranitar and the Corviknight for Alberto, one of his comfort leads.
Yeah, although, because we were talking about in the lens about the last round, Corviknight excels in these situations where it's not being threatened with a knockout, and you'd assume a close combat in a wave crash from this much smaller, cuter Palafin probably not quite going to be enough. Tyranitar feeling very threatened perhaps alongside it, but do you really try to go for it in this situation where a Protect or a Switch seems so clear and a Brave Bird's being threatened on that Sneasler?
Yeah, the hard part of Palafin here is this would be great if Palafin were already in hero form. It'd be a great turn to just go for a coaching and get some big damage out from the Palafin, but because Palafin has to switch out to activate the hero form, Collin is forced to switch it out. It is not exerting enough offensive pressure here, and instead, Garchomp out on the field for Collin. Alberto going to match the switch, switching out the Tyranitar on his side for the Basculegion. And there is the coaching. +1 to attack, +1 to defense. These are boosts. Garchomp can pick up KOs, survive a Brave Bird or a body press. Easy, deals more damage back with the rough skin.
Wow, that's a heck of a play there by Collin. Perhaps on Alberto's side of the field, maybe fishing for King Gambit, instead catching the wrong Pokemon to switch. Maybe doesn't correctly anticipate a coaching there. Although I guess probably if you're expecting coaching this line, maybe you just go for an attack onto the Sneasler instead. But a really good looking play for Collin there, where gets the Palafin out safely, gets this buff onto the Garchomp, and now facing down 2 physical attacking Pokemon, and not really being all that threatened either, where you can start trading if you're Alberto. But do you want to just like start swinging away with this Garchomp already being boosted?
Yeah, honestly, kind of the dream here for Collin. Now has the real offensive threat capable of taking these coachings from Sneasler, and the Basculegion will be able to deal damage with Wave Crash, but it is not powered up at that last respects just yet. No Pokemon have gone down. Just protecting itself once more means a second coaching is applied to the Dragon-type Garchomp. Dragon Claw into the Protect means that Alberto has at least avoided damage and gets the Tailwind set up this time. That's 2 defense boosts on that Garchomp now.
Yeah, I mean, the speed control is great and all, but it doesn't really matter who goes first if you can't knock out your opponents. The positive thing for Alberto here is he likely does have that flow at the back. At least I'd hope so. Otherwise, things are looking pretty bleak.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you hope Icy Wind does a lot if Gengar is there for some reason, though you'd assume not in this situation with the awkwardness of Tyranitar potentially breaking your own Focus Sash, which is kind of information for Collin as well, right? Where surely he has not selected this combination of Pokemon. Going to get the Sneasler out of the field here, but boy, things are looking fantastic for Collin early in this match.
Yeah, Palafin in for the Sneasler. Sneasler will be protected from any additional damage to allow for more fake outs, more coachings later. And that is an adaptability, Mystic Water boosted Wave Crash, not even doing half damage to the Garchomp. Takes a lot of damage back on the recoil as well. Brave Bird deals a decent amount of damage into Palafin, but because it does not have any of those defense boosts yet. But this Dragon Claw, oh man. Garchomp's angry. Garchomp is ready to pick up some KOs.
Yeah, easily picking up the knockout. I think what is widely considered to be the strongest Pokemon this format, and kind of just makes it look useless the whole way through there, right? Where it doesn't get too much done, does burn a turn of Tailwind without it mattering too much. And at this point, even if that Pokemon is Floette and it comes in here, seeming viable-ish for Collin to be able to stall that out with having to switch the Garchomp out. A really important decision here for Alberto, where he's really on the back foot, and I think if he doesn't kind of immediately take control of the match the next turner, so we should start talking about game 2 instead of this one.
The one benefit that Alberto has, if Floette is in the back, is having that Tailwind, like you mentioned, meaning that this Floette would be able to pick up a KO onto the Garchomp, but with Tyranitar coming out here, that's a bad sign for Alberto's hopes here. This is, again, 2 physical attacking Pokemon against a Garchomp that has +2/+2 in attack and defense, and a Palafin that can get its own buffs to its defense.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see Tyranitar coming in. It can only super feasibly be Garchomp or Floette in the back. Maybe it's Garchomp instead, which would be pretty disastrous here. Yeah, things are looking bleak. I mean, that coaching early on was so great, and I think also with me too. That Sneasler was hanging out with Corviknight on the field for an awful long time, got out at just the right time, and we'll have to see what Alberto goes for here, but the Protect is not exactly taking control of the game with his own Tailwind.
Yeah, at least gets the Protect out of the Palafin as well. But that's just actually going to be a whiffed Brave Bird into the Palafin as Earthquake comes out from Garchomp. Would have dealt big damage to both of these Pokemon, but instead, just a wasted turn. Again, another turn of Tailwind. The advantage that Alberto has in this game right now has been wasted. Yeah,
this Tailwind not doing a whole lot, where so far it's been totally irrelevant. There's only a single turn of it left, and I guess it could matter if his turn for allowing Tyranitar in particular to attack before these Pokemon, where Corviknight's a little bit safer, but great. Do you really want to do that? Where, I guess Tyranitar is going to have to do something before it gets caught with Sneasler again in the end game, but it's just hard to see a path for Alberto here. I think that Tailwind seemed like it was going to be the opportunity, and it's just not doing much for him.
Yeah, the Tyranitar is just not exerting a lot of pressure here. There is the opportunity to take out this Palafin with the double up from the Tyranitar and the Corviknight, but in doing so, you're just leaving this +2/+2 Garchomp on the field, and unless that Floette is in the back, unless that Gengar is in the back, it's looking unchallenged.
Yeah, I just... I don't see the pattern. We see the Mega Evolution, so the answer to why Floette didn't come in is because Floette wasn't here, as we might have thought. But I don't know if the Mega Evolution is going to be enough to pick this Garchomp up, and it looks hungry.
And the Jet Punch from Palafin does a surprising amount of damage, more than 50% onto Tyranitar. Of course, it is a stronger version of Aqua Jet. The knockoff does good damage to the Garchomp through the 2 defense boosts, knocks off the Citrus Berry. Crucially, would have been a bad situation for Alberto for sure if that Citrus Berry had been able to activate, but Palafin's able to hang on after the Brave Bird because it was not double targeted, and Tyranitar knocks off the Citrus Berry and goes down for its troubles.
Yeah, I mean, the Citrus Berry knockoff is like a somewhat big deal. I guess as big of a big deal as it can be in a situation where it's a 4-2 and you have 2 coaching boosts on Garchomp. But I think with that healing, yeah, it's like over, no matter what's in the back. We'll have to see what it is here. Okay, so it is the Garchomp. That's kind of thinking, okay, it doesn't make any sense really to bring Garchomp in Tailwind when you already have a speed advantage that you don't need. Garchomp will be the quickest Pokemon on the field, and I guess probably threatening a knockout at either of these Pokemon, even with the coaching boost, but there's a lot of ground to make up still, but maybe this is the way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Alberto, love you to death. Bringing the dragon in front of this Sneasler is not, you're just asking to get slayed at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you might not have to wait for a tribal council this time, but yeah, it's I mean, it's not over there. Interesting to see what Garchomp's going to choose to lock into. You know, like, Rock Slide is sort of an option, although you can't Rock Slide flinch
forever.
Yeah, or Palafin if it opts to go for a Jet Punch to get around that. And so we're going to see the Earthquake immediately, trying to dish out some damage to both these Pokemon. I assume Garchomp, survives this pretty comfortably.
Yep, survived with 13 hit points. The Dragon Claw right back. Will be a trade of both dragons slayed here after the rough skin damage, but that is all Collin needs. Oh, actually it does not, because that's is able to hang on here, because that's Sand Veil on Alberto's Garchomp, not the rough skin. My apologies, as Palafin just gets the leftovers recovery and Garchomp's still on the field.
Yeah, so this doesn't seem great. The good news is, we're moving on to game 2. That's the good news. Really dominant game and by Collin there. I guess 2 elements of this. Like, that was an incredible first 2 turns by Collin.
Yeah.
Like, almost no matter what Alberto brought, I'm not certain what he was supposed to do from that point, where just masterful early game. And you see how he's become undefeated, where that is a very tricky and a much better version of, like, much better path of how coaching was used in this match than I've watched from other players. Conversely, on Alberto's side of the field, I'm surprised to see no special attacking there. Neither Gengar or Floette coming to battle, so just 4 physically attacking Pokemon. And when you have both bulk up and coaching on the other side of the field, there's a lot of ways for this to happen.
Yep, and this Garchomp took so many attacks. Took that Earthquake, took Brave Birds, took a knockoff from the Tyranitar, took a body press as well. It took hits, it tanked them, but thanks to that coaching boost, it was not able to go down. So definitely feel like you want to have some kind of special attacking options against this team if you are Alberto, but it's just going to be the same leads once again. Palafin and Sneasler for Collin, and Corviknight Tyranitar for Alberto.
So I'm like 100 for 100. I click close combat on Tyranitar versus turns. Like, okay, switching it up. But yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see this run back. Obviously, on Alberto's side of the field, you don't want to just allow the snowball you did this time. I think the way you avoid that is to pressure the Sneasler a little bit more. Certainly Collin knows that too, and I think this is going to be a difficult situation to come up in. Again, we don't know what Alberto's back Pokemon are, where Corviknight is potentially threatening, okay, well, my plan is really to Tailwind and use Floette this time, which I think is probably the best path into this game, but even if he tries that, right, where one of the reasons why I think that was probably unappealing the previous time is both that some of these Pokemon match up very well with Floette, and Palafin in particular can just ignore the Tailwind and bonk its weak defense stat anyway.
Well, just like in game 1, Palafin has switched out for the Garchomp. This time it's going to be the Garchomp switching in instead of the Tyranitar. There is a Dire Claw, deals a little bit of damage to the Garchomp, does not get the additional status proc there. Here comes the Brave Bird, connects onto Garchomp. Once again here, the Rough Skin and the recoil damage going to deal a good amount back to Corviknight. This is a much better position for Alberto, now having the Scarf Garchomp out, threatening both of these Pokemon with big damage.
Yeah, sort of a nothing trade from both sides, but I think, yeah, getting Garchomp in is a big deal here, where threatening an Earthquake is really strong here. It causes Corviknight to kind of be completely unthreatened here because the Garchomp is such a big threat, so you can take a bulk up or a Tailwind as you'd like here. Really good improvement for Collin, although now this time Palafin can come in, and perhaps we're going to see a different Pokemon be the focus of Collin's offense this time around.
Yeah, just a different option here for Collin, as the Earthquake is locked into by Alberto. That is going to be a Scarf Earthquake, so that means that Garchomp will only be able to use Earthquake 4 until it turns out.
Oh, jeez. There's that Sand Veil you mentioned before, and while the lack of rough skin damage may have negatively impacted the first game a tiny bit, hugely impacting the second game as this Garchomp nimbly dodges the Dragon Claw from its opposing number, and suddenly Alberto's looking very good here by avoiding some crucial damage. If it probably was a knockout, but even if it wasn't, would have been nearly a knockout. Now a very healthy Garchomp still sitting there, being a problem now for Collin because the Garchomp is sort of pinned on his side of the field.
Yeah, and that is simply what happens sometimes with Sand Veil, is if you thought you had a guaranteed attack, you don't anymore. That means that another Earthquake will come out from Alberto's Garchomp. Palafin protects itself from any additional damage. Collin needs to maintain one of these sweepers here as Garchomp takes good damage from the Earthquake. The Citrus Berry keeping it up and in the fight right now as Palafin, with that Protect, is able to avoid the Brave Bird. And this time, Collin is able to land the Dragon Claw, but not before additional damage was put down onto Collin's Garchomp.
Yeah, I think that's some critical damage too, even though the Brave Bird calls the wrong slot there, which enables Garchomp to get knocked out. It is the Garchomp on Collin's side of the field is still in Brave Bird range, and now a free switch where we do see them flow out. So okay, both the adjustments we're kind of expecting for Alberto, where he pressures the early game better, and then also has the flow out in the back now to help out and take advantage of this. Unlike in the previous game as well, no boosts on these Pokemon this time around. So while Float could be threatened for some damage, but Jet Punch is not going to be a one-hit KO. So Alberto looking like he's in the driver's seat of this second game. Yeah,
Alberto definitely in a much better position here in game 2 with Float coming in under this Tailwind. Floet's Fairy Aura will boost the power of its attacks, and Collin is forced to just go for a double Protect on the Palafin. It fails. That's going to be a KO onto Garchomp with the Dazzling Gleam. Palafin only at 27 hit points. Any attack Corviknight hits except for the Bulk Up would be enough to pick up the KO. Actually doesn't, it has Body Press, so any attack it picks will pick up the KO onto Palafin. That is a double KO on Alberto's side.
Yeah, things are looking very different from that first game. 2 big knockouts. I guess critically with the double knockout here, at least you get a double switch. So Sneasler and the final Pokemon can come in, and Sneasler can at least somewhat try to protect it with a fake out. Although, I guess whatever doesn't get faked out here is in some deep trouble. So things not looking so great for Sneasler itself, but perhaps Frostlass can go for the 1v3-ish against the team that still has a Tyranitar.
Still has Tyranitar in the back that could switch in at any moment to remove the snow from Frostlass. Frostlass is forced to Mega Evolve here. There is no option remaining for Collin. We'll be able to set the snow, so the Blizzard will be active. Aurora Veil will be active unless this Tyranitar switches in. Does not happen. The Fake Out connects on to Floette. Floette flinches, is not able to attack, but Corviknight's Brave Bird will be able to connect on to the Sneasler, picks up the KO, and like you mentioned, it is 1v3 for this Frostlass, and it can't beat Tyranitar.
Yeah, so you need a lot of Blizzard hit freezes is what
in the sand.
Yeah.
There's our first Blizzard hit onto Floette and Corviknight, a critical hit onto Floette, in fact. That is helpful as Tailwind peters out. Blizzard landing on Floette would put that Pokemon out of commission here, but again, it's just so hard for me to see how this Frostlass, unless it can get a freeze on Tyranitar, can break that core.
Yeah, honestly, I think even with the freeze can't last long enough in Pokemon Champions for it to actually work. So I do think this is 100%, but hey, why not click some Blizzards? Corviknight going to survive here, so that'll be it huge. With the Tailwind. But both players probably thinking about that third game. I think both players played very impressively in the games that they've won so far in this set, where just kind of dominant victories. And as we've seen so much so far in Regulation MA, the early game is just so important, where both these games snowballed really quickly. Yeah,
really awesome adjustments from Alberto as well to see what went wrong in that game 1. Lack of special attacking, allowing that Sneasler to just sit around and give buffs to the Garchomp. And not being able to pressure Pokemon like Palafin on the switch-in. All of that changed in Game 2. Being able to go aggressive against the Sneasler early, bringing the Floette under Tailwind, delaying the Tailwind a little bit as well to get those extra turns. Great adjustments from Alberto.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting. Right? I think Game 1, I've seen a lot of teams that look similar to Collins, but he really played it with his big boy pants on, right? Where it's just a little different coming from him than just some random person on the ladder. Conversely, I think Alberto just didn't seem to understand what Collin's game plan was going to be in that first game, and like really mispicked, where once he saw what Collin's going for, I was like, okay, like I get his side of the field now. I'm going to make him have to do something different. And in that second game, he wasn't able to adjust. So I'll be kind of excited for this third game where, does Collin have the ability to go with something like fairly different? I'm not so sure he does. I think this is actually a situation where, despite how dominant the first game is, I like Alberto here, which is because I think the other two Pokemon in Collin's team are kind of hard to pick. Where, especially Dragonite's not ever always going to be as strong into the sort of sand matchup, just because of multi-skill being able to be broken by the Sandstorm, and then a lot of Pokemon who have type advantages against it here. King Gambit, similar issues where most of the Pokemon on the other side are going to burn it down pretty quickly. So it's probably going to need to mostly be playstyle adjustments from Collin if he wants to take the third game of this set.
Yeah, well, Collin has the ability to make some adjustments here. Again, getting that coaching off onto Garchomp in game one was a big deal for Garchomp being able to stick around long enough to get that second coaching and potentially come in for more damage. No coaching spent in game two, instead just went on the offense, even though switched in the Garchomp. Really need to get some of those buffs down onto either the Palafin or the Garchomp, especially the Palafin if you're going to threaten that Floette in Tailwind. And here we go. It's the same leads from Collin and an adjustment made for Alberto. Instead of leading the Tyranitar and being forced out turn one every time, going for the Garchomp immediately.
Yeah, no Sandveil this time, unfortunately. I guess that's the one big difference. But yeah, gonna half a turn here faster. We're like, okay, well, I'm gonna knock out the Sneasler if you don't fake me out. So now it feels like it has to, which kind of removes the threat of that coaching largely. And then, because of that, what do you do with the Corviknight slot, right? Do you just go for the Tailwind here? Unfortunately, no bulk up, as you mentioned before, so you can't exploit it the way that some of the other Corviknight we've seen have. But pretty nice opening position for Alberto as he kind of continues to adjust, and maybe also thinking like what we were in between turns. Like, well, it's tough for him to pick different Pokemon, so probably going to see something very similar to what I saw in game one and game two.
And once more, as is Palafin's want, switching out this time to Frostlass. The Frostlass coming out on the field as Garchomp takes that fake out from the Sneasler. This is a big game plan adjustment from Collin to be bringing in the Frostlass here instead of the Garchomp, but protects those two potential physical sweepers in the back from these Tailwind turns.
Yeah, so now we wind up in a pretty interesting position. I assume if these Pokemon all stay on the field and it's just like a Brave Bird Earthquake, with help from the snow, Frostlass can probably survive it and knock out Garchomp, but going for that's a little bit risky. So there's the threat of Tyranitar coming in, although I guess no, it really isn't, because you gotta wait for it to Mega Evolve first. Yeah, I mean, I kind of hate the spot for Collin, actually, where it's like, I don't really like any of Alberto's plays that much. And like, again, Sneasler's being threatened, but it's a relatively safe switch because Frostlass is exerting so much pressure, it's pretty tough not to double it. Or like maybe you switch Garchomp here, kind of not running to risk the somewhat high potential of getting blizzarded. So I don't mind it, but Sneasler's going to lead first.
Yep, Sneasler is out, does not want to provide any coachings to Frostlass, and instead a big adjustment here, a new Pokemon shown by Collin. No more Garchomp, instead it's all about the King Gambit here as Frostlass Mega Evolves, Mega Frostlass on the field. The snow warning will set the snow on the field, activating the ability to go for Aurora Veil and 100% accurate blizzards. There's the Earthquake, deals really good damage to both of those Pokemon. A critical hit onto Frostlass. That gets spooky here as Corviknight's Brave Bird now coming down onto the Frostlass as well is not enough to pick up the KO. 8 hit points, Frostlass holds on after the critical hit. With this Blizzard, KO onto Garchomp, big damage onto Corviknight.
That is massive. I think this game is super over without that.
That was before the freeze.
Turns the other way. The freeze on the Corviknight. And hey, these matches are closer than ever. Looked like it was all over for Collin, but that Frostlass wants to stay undefeated. Hangs on at low HP, picks up a knockout, picks up a freeze, and suddenly things are looking like Collin might be the one with the advantage.
Yeah, the Corviknight on Alberto's side, being like, you might wonder how I got into this position here. Frozen, still on, hanging in air.
Unclear how that's occurring, but
there really is still the Tailwind up for Alberto.
Yeah, it's keeping it up. Yeah,
obviously it's an updraft.
Yeah, but critically in the context of the actual battle here, where Floette will be the quickest Pokemon in the field because of the Tailwind, but still a precarious position, especially if this Corviknight isn't able to unthaw. It's a 25% chance now, so reasonably likely, but not probable.
Not probable. Floette will have to go ahead and Mega Evolve here to get that offensive pressure down. King Gambit protecting. Because of the damage it took on the Earthquake, cannot stand up to some of these attacks from Floette. Dazzling Gleam here into the Protect, now connecting onto the Frostlass. That will clean up the remaining hit points from that Pokemon. And now Frostlass retreats to the Pokeball. Corviknight still frozen here. Frostlass did its job.
It's probably going to turn out that the freeze actually doesn't matter that much. It's a lot of fun, of course, to enjoy here, but you know, it can only be frozen for a couple more turns anyway, and that action wasn't going to matter regardless. But it could matter for this West turn here, where still has potentially one more turn of freeze to burn, and Sneasler out in the field. While it's not maybe your ideal matchup into these Pokemon, threatening a fake out and other slide, and I think more critically trying to get back to the point where this Tailwind expires and Sneasler's able to actually use its speed. So I think most likely a fake out on the Floette, obviously, you know, just kind of banking on this Corviknight thawing or not. So it could be a very important freeze roll on this upcoming turn.
The other option here is to expect a defensive play from Floette. Retreat your King Gambit for a coaching onto Palafin. Then you're in a good place.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best play here too, where I don't know if you get that much out of a turn otherwise. So I'm too curious if we go for it. But no, it'll be the fake out, playing it safe here, but King Gambit going to get a hold of somebody.
Yeah, King Gambit now has the opportunity to go on the offensive because Corviknight is still frozen. There's the Iron Head coming out, connects onto Tyranitar on the switch, and that Pokemon goes down. A critical hit. Collin's Pokemon want this 7-0.
Yeah, what a crazy set here by a bunch of wild plays back and forth. Tailwind expiring. King Gambit still going to be the slowest Pokemon in the field, but now this Sneasler is the fastest, and well, this is sort of an interesting situation in itself where I believe the Corviknight has to thaw here. Are we...
It's either this turn or next turn.
Yeah, well, I
can't recall.
Yeah. It's a shame because that's critical, but hey, we'll find out together, everyone. Conversely, the Floette, you know, the obvious play here is to go for a Protect, so are you real bold to try and Dazzling Gleam anyway? It could be a difficult move to make in this position, but you know, it's been truly a bizarre set so far.
Well, it's all going to come down to this remaining turn. The Corviknight still frozen in the air alongside the Floette. If it can unfreeze, if it unfreezes this turn, can fire off either a Brave Bird into the Sneasler or a Body Press into the King Gambit.
Yeah, I believe this is the third turn, right? So yeah, it has to thaw. But hopefully both traders remember, although we've had some adventures with that so far this weekend.
Well, there is King Gambit retreating here off of the field. Palafin coming out now, so this turn, Palafin is now out on the field and capable of taking a coaching from the Sneasler. Instead, the Dire Claw Floette, no Protect. Collin calls Alberto out, knocks out the Floette. This Corviknight is now all alone, even with the thaw. The Tailwind able to make this the fastest Pokemon on the field to do nothing. Really well played there from Alberto, really well played from Collin as well. Just ultimately ended up, just Collin was able to get a couple of good rolls and maintain a lot of advantage, capitalize on each one of those that he got.
Yeah, I mean, it almost went the other way there, where I think that Frostlass is trained just slightly differently. It goes down to the critical hit, and we've already sent two of the interviews. So really impressive right here. The coaching going to make this Palafin even more devastating, but I don't know if it's going to matter too much.
Brave Bird from Corviknight. That's going to be able to KO this Sneasler, but it's just going to have to take an attack from this now +1/+1 Palafin, and King Gambit still in the back. No real options here for Corviknight. It can stick around on the field here. It can eat its Citrus Berry, put a second bulk up. Now this Palafin at +2/+2. Collin is just kind of styling right now.
Yeah, look like we're memeing a little bit here, but hey, you know, why not? We've had a match, why not? You know, just enjoy the moment on stage a little bit more. As Palafin is very large and very angry, or maybe not that angry, I guess, because it's not going on the offense. It's kind of vibing.
Yeah, it's just hanging out on the beach, bulking up, getting ready for when it eventually decides to go on the offense.
Yeah, looks like it's kind of comfortable there too, just kind of chilling. You know, it's
hanging out with its boy King Gambit, just sitting on their stump.
It's like, hey man, can you remember that bird used to be frozen? That's crazy.
Wild how that happens. It was just like frozen in air right there. How does that even work? How did it make that happen? Oh, there it goes. A critical hit. Just for good measure there.
Don't worry, I got it.
Palafin's like, I got this. I do it. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
You can't ask for a more exciting match than that one. Where, really decisive game 1 and game 2.